figure that out. People are claiming it was a mistake. Now, while it may have been a mistake in terms of not wanting to hit an airline, but firing that missile is not a mistake. And was not a mistake. And based on all the evidence that we're starting to receive from various sources, you, again, have to be highly trained to fire this particular missile system. So, who again was it that fired the deadly missile that took the Malaysian flight M17 to its final destination in a field somewhere around the Ukrainian and Russian border? And of course, the fascist Putin is running around saying, it's the Ukrainian government. It's the Ukrainian government. He sounds like a sick William Tell. They're taking over the crime scene, or should I actually say the scene of the accident? That is, the scene of where it was shot down. They're taking over the wreckage area, and they will not allow the Ukrainian government in, even though it's in Ukraine. So this is what's going on. This is the state of play. And of course, there's going to be more information coming out, but our military tracked that missile, as did the Europeans. And there's a great deal of debate over it was west of the border of Ukraine or from Russia. But even the part west of the border is controlled by a pro-Russian separatist. Now, you're not going to take a separatist and train him in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Here again, this complex missile system takes a couple of years to learn all the properties, the mechanics, the computers, and everything else that need to integrate together to be able to even trigger it. Who was sitting inside of that vehicle that fired that missile? Well, I'd like to think that answer's pretty simple. So there should be no confusion about this. Oh, and I'm sure there will be more details about this over time. People questioning why the airliner was in a particular region and this and that. We'll get to all that. That'll all be uncovered. Then we got to deal with the sickos out there that will claim the U.S. had a direct hand in it somehow and wanted this to happen. Ugh. I'm digressing. I'm sorry. I really think it's time for a drink of my coffee and a quick commercial. Mr. Producer, is it time for a commercial? I must be. He's waving a red flag at me. Tell me, hey, you're going over your time limit. Well, okay, here goes, folks. I'm going to have to take a quick drink of my coffee and encourage you to do the same. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and I'll be right back, and we're going to take a look at more of what's going on in this crazy place, the world that we live in. You're listening to A Viewpoint with your host, Greg Hunt.
City of Austin tap water versus filtered City of Austin tap water.
I can taste dirt in it.
God knows what's in this.
These people just sampled City of Austin tap water straight from the faucet. Next, we had them try a sample of tap water filtered with a Pro Pure G2.0 filtration system.
That one is better.
Tastes like nothing. Yep, I know what good water tastes like. It's good water.
Most tap water contains added substances like fluoride, chlorine, glyphosate, and many others. Studies prove that these substances are linked to an assortment of major health issues, including tooth decay, lowered IQ, and even cancer.
It tastes like you're drinking out of the lake when you're drinking tap water.
The Pro Pure G2.0 filtration system removes these deadly substances, leaving only fresh-tasting, deliciously clean water.
Okay, this is very tasty.
It's good water. Refreshing.
It's good.
Go to InfoWarsStore.com today. Use promo code WATER and save 10% off your Pro Pure purchase. Or call 1-888-253-3139.
Well, welcome back, folks. Hope you all enjoyed that quick little drink of coffee. I know I did. Lord, I believe that's the first cup of coffee I think I've had in about 3 to 4 days. So if I start vibrating on the microphone, don't mind me. It's just a little rush of caffeine. It'll be all right. Anyways, taking a look here at some further news. We're going to carve right into all this junk. It's really important because, I'm telling you, folks, this world's just getting out of control. I mean, out of control. Let's take a look at this headline right here. Obama and neocons get ball rolling on World War III. Well, you can believe that, folks. I'm telling you. You know, there's been a lot of people that have thought that World War III is going to be, start with this event or that event. But I'm telling you, you turn on the news and just, if you can even endure to sit through it, I mean, everything that's going on in the Middle East, China's getting up in the arms, and along with Russia about their monetary system and wanting to change it and pull away from utilizing the U.S. dollar as their form of banking currency, and all this garbage going on that's been going on in Russia and Ukraine, and now with this airliner. And certainly we do not want to overlook the horrific tragedy as it's ongoing and unfolding over in Israel and the Gaza Strip. I mean, people, if we've ever been on the edge of a global World War III, I'm telling you, we're living in the times. You're watching it. What you're watching and witnessing is prophecy being fulfilled and coming forth. I'm not going to divert off into the Bible. I might cover that on another show for prophecy being fulfilled. In fact, I might even see if I can get my father-in-law to join me on that. But moving right along here with this title. Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the State Department, as well as John McCain and others in government, have unanimously, wow, can you tell? I probably need some more caffeine. I can't talk today. Have unanimously reached the conclusion Russia was behind the deadly attack on the Malaysian airliner in Ukraine. Of course, now they reached this conclusion despite the fact that the attack occurred less than 24 hours ago, and no investigation has yet to begin. The neocon wing of the establishment is ready to begin the process of blaming Russia and start the process of punitive sanctions. Quote here, I think we could bring the UN into this and start the ball rolling. Stephen Black, a Russia fellow at the American Foreign Policy Council, told USA Today. Not just the Security Council, but the General Assembly, where Russia can veto it. Hello. Of course, there are more economic tools. We did not simply block them from doing dollar-denominated transactions. The AFPC is aligned with the American Enterprise Institute, the Center for Security Policy, and other neocon advocacy groups responsible for the invasion and occupation of Iraq. And meanwhile, the Atlantic Council, a NATO think tank staffed by an array of insiders like Henry Kissinger, Brent Scowcroft, is calling for additional sanctions slapped on Russia. Damon Wilson, who served as a Russian and Ukraine expert in the administrations George W. Bush and Bill Clinton, and now works for the Atlantic Council, says the U.S. government and the European Union should crank up sanctions that bite, along with military assistance, including lethal military assistance. The fascist-denominated regime installed in Kiev by the State Department. Well, let's take a look at how that all might roll out and play out. Expanding sanctions. Obama called Russian President Putin on Thursday, that'd be today, promised additional sanctions and made sanctions on how Russia might step away from the conflict on its border. How is Russia going to step away when the missile it took down was Russian-made and either fired by a Russian or trained by a Russian? Now, exactly how you going to step away from that? But anyways, quote from Mr. Fearless Leader Obama, along with our allies, with whom I've been coordinating closely over the last several days and weeks, I have repeatedly made it clear that Russia must halt the flow of weapons of fighters across the border into Ukraine. That Russia must urge separatists to release hostages and to support a ceasefire. That Russia needs to pursue internationally, combined with mediated talks and agreed to meaningful monitors on the border. I have made this clear to Mr. Putin, so says Obama from the White House on Wednesday. Putin don't pay no more attention to that loom ball in that Oval Office than I pay attention to how much pigeon crap comes out of a pigeon's butt. In fact, Putin probably turned around after that phone call and laughed and probably said to himself and his cabinet members, he said, "You ain't gonna believe what that moron just told me. We have become I'm not sure that our country has become the laughing stock to Russia, but I'll certainly guarantee you this current administration has. Look, whether you liked Bush or not, but if Bush was still president, do you think he would just be pity-patting with Putin?" Now, of course, I know I got some Democratic haters out there that are going to say, "Oh, no, because Bush was a warmonger and he'd have probably started throwing nukes." Come on, people, get a clue. Get a life. I mean, go back even in history. Clear back into, I want to say, you might have to look this up for yourself, 1983, 1984, Russian shot down the Korean passenger airliner. Go back and listen to the audio clips of how President Reagan addressed Russia's president at that time. I promise you it wasn't no pity pat. I've listened to it. In fact, I've listened to it several times. And I was, obviously I'm old enough that I can remember that. And I remember that very event. But because Russia has failed to meet the basic standards of international conduct, we are acting today to open Russia's financial services and energy sectors to sanctions and limit the access of 2 key Russian banks and 2 key energy firms to U.S. sources of financing, and to impose blocking sanctions against 8 arms firms and a set of senior Russian officials. Now, that's a notice that was posted by the Treasury Department. That's another joke. Russia could shut down the border and prevent the transfer of heavy weapons and material to separatists, but I might add they have not done that. President Putin himself could intervene with pro-Russian separatists and encourage them to abide by the ceasefire, but he has not done that either, said White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest. That's a conversation for another time, too. He ain't no better than James Carney, but neither here nor there. Getting back to this whole ceasefire. Look, and I use this as an illustration. The UN ordered a ceasefire over in Gaza and Israel, okay? Now, Israel stopped in accordance with that directive from the United Nations because they wanted to drop humanitarian aid down into Gaza for their claimed victims and civilians who they are hiding behind along with their weapons. Do you think Hamas was smart enough to stop? No, they took full advantage of it and kept firing away and started to lay out the rules of who was the most in that region. But not to digress off the topic here, I'm using it as point and illustration. Who listens to a ceasefire? Oh, so the UN gonna issue a ceasefire over here in Ukraine and little fascist groups over there squabbling back and forth? And even if the UN, look, in the past, I think 2 or 3 days, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4 planes shot down. I'm just almost sure they're going to listen to a ceasefire order. Ernest failed to mention that the confectionery magnate and current president of the regime in Kiev, Petro Poroshenko, ended the ceasefire on July 1st. He went on national television and said the coup regime would attack and liberate our land. Important note there. But wait, it's getting better, because now they're in war preparations. Earlier this month, the top commander of NATO Air Force, General Philip N. Breedlove, announced U.S.-based troops will buttress American forces that have already been moved in recent months from Germany, Italy, and elsewhere in Europe for stepped-up ground and air patrols in the 3 Baltic countries of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, along with Poland and Romania, according to McClatchy. The effort to go up against Russia and Ukraine was derailed when Putin ruled out full frontal invasion, as Business Insider characterized Russian defense of its border, and moved troops and equipment away from the border in May. The force that remains on the border is very large and is very capable and remains in a very coercive posture, General Breedlove insisted. Now, keeping that in mind, with Kiev's military campaign against fellow Ukrainians to the east faring poorly, an actual Russian invasion of Ukraine would not only benefit them and their backers in both the European Union and collaborating states within NATO, Tony Carlucci wrote on July 15th. The downing of a Malaysian airliner, an incident immediately exploited by the political class in Washington, will undoubtedly push exacting sanctions out